Jason Roth, agronomist with Winfield United here at the Gagetown Answer Plot, wanting to walk you through a different demo or field trial that we did just to help illustrate the different technologies we have in soybeans with trait technologies, and then the herbicides that we can and maybe cannot spray on those different traits. So what we have here in the plot today is we have 6 different traits. Those traits were planted north to south, and they were in 6 rows. So in here we see we have 6 different traits planted in front of me and behind me. One traits A, B, C, D, E, and F, and then we sprayed different herbicides perpendicular to those traits. So the traits are going to be planted this way, 6 rows each, and then we sprayed herbicides going across those treatments or across those traits this way. And so you can see, for instance, in my background, number one represents a herbicide that was sprayed across all these trait platforms. And as we walk across this plot today, you're going to see some differences, and I just want to talk through some of the different things that we did. We sprayed 8 different herbicides. We sprayed one of those herbicides pre, and we sprayed 7 of them post over these beans. And then we were able to do an exercise with the cooperative elevator sales agronomists for training the other day, where they had these blanks and they were able to fill out where they thought the traits were and where they thought the certain herbicides were applied. So we provided those trait packages and the herbicide spray. So what were those? The traits that we planted here, we have dicamba extend beans, we have enlist beans, E3 beans, we have straight Roundup Ready 2 beans, we had straight Liberty beans, we had non-GMO beans, and we had Liberty Link GT27 beans. So those were the 6 different trait packages. And then what did we spray for herbicides? We had one herbicide application that was a pre, that was a light 27 or balance, which you would know as a balance flex. That's going to be similar to a Callisto or an HPPD applied pre. And then our post applications of herbicides, we had Extendamax applied, we had Enlist 1 herbicide applied, we had Liberty applied, we had Roundup applied, and then we had 2 HPPD chemistries applied. We sprayed Callisto post, and we sprayed a light 27 post. So those were our different herbicides that we sprayed post applied. And so the exercise is to figure out where are the certain traits and where are there certain herbicides applied. So we want to walk through the plot now and just show you some of the symptomology, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit as we go. So here we see our first herbicide application in Spray Pass 1. This was applied, obviously, I should mention the post applications were applied about 2.5–3 weeks ago. The pre-application, of course, was before these soybeans came up, which were planted in late May. So as we look across Spray Pass 1, this is perhaps a little more obvious. This was a pre-application because we can see that the beans have come through quite a bit. And this was a pre-application of Balance Flex, or what we know as a light 27. That'll be the herbicide labeled for the Liberty Link GT27 beans. And so in the closest, in the foreground here is a plot that was not affected at all by that pre-application. And then as you get to the plot I'm standing in, you see a notable shrink, stunting in the beans. Obviously you can still pick up some of the yellowing and discoloration that's going on in these beans, and then in the background not quite as much. So what we see here are a couple things interesting. Some of these beans not impacted at all. That's probably because those are traded for that balance or that light 27 herbicide. The beans that I'm standing in right here are pretty significantly impacted. They're stunted, they're still a little bit yellow. The beans in the background, stunted, but maybe not showing that yellow color quite as much. And so we see differences we see a trait that's obviously a soybean that can handle that. And then we see soybeans here that are struggling with that herbicide, and some struggle more than others. That's just some genetic differences in handling that herbicide. But this was the pre-application of a light 27, which is the balance beans. The Liberty Link GT27 beans handled fine, and then the beans in the background here struggled with. But come along, let's go to the next plot and let's puzzle over what we got going on here. So here we can see in the foreground all the beans in front here are hit by this herbicide, and as we shift all the way to the background, all the beans hit with this herbicide. There was one herbicide I think I forgot to mention earlier that was sprayed here. So before we think about this, let's look at the obvious. Every plot is affected by what was sprayed here. Every plot. Now there's a trait change here. You can see that this trait not impacted quite as much, but they're still struggling. What's the symptom? So key observation number 1, every plot is impacted with the herbicide. Number 2, what's the symptomology? We see what we'll call epinasty. Those beans are bending down and curling over. That's classic symptomology from a growth regulator herbicide like dicamba or 2,4-D. But we said earlier that one of these beans is enlist beans and one of these beans is a dicamba bean. So they should be able to handle, right? There should be one plot that seems to be handling that growth regulator, right? And yet every plot is struggling. Why is that? Well, because this application was status. And status is a dicamba herbicide, but it's also got another active ingredient in it, diflufenzacapir, which these traits are, which no soybean is traded for. And so you can see here's a trait platform that's struggling with it, handling a little bit better, but all the platforms here are hit by this, and that's because this application was status. Now let's go to the next plot. Application number 3. Now here we have, again, 6 traits, 6 different types of beans. In the foreground, we have no beans that are struggling. As we get back into the background here, we pick up just behind pass 3 a dead plot, and go to the very back plot, we find another dead plot. So we've got 6 traits, we've got 2 plots that are dead, we've got 4 that are alive. So what herbicide could we spray that would kill 2 plots and leave 4 plots alive? Well, we go through a process of elimination. Let's think about Liberty. Would Liberty kill Liberty Link GT27 beans? No, Liberty wouldn't. Would Liberty Link kill enlist beans? No, they're traded for Liberty. Would Liberty kill dicamba beans? Yes, right? So that's 1. Would Liberty kill Roundup Ready 2 beans? Yes. Would Liberty kill Liberty beans? No. Would Liberty kill non-GMO beans? Yes. So Liberty would kill 3 plots and leave 3 plots. But here we have 4 plots that are alive and 2 plots that are dead. So it must not be Liberty. What else might it be? What about Roundup? Would Roundup kill a Liberty Link GT27 bean? No, it's traded for Roundup. Would Roundup kill an Enlist E3 bean? No, it's traded for Roundup. Would Roundup kill an Extend bean? No, it's traded for Roundup. Would Roundup kill a Liberty bean? Yes. Would Roundup kill a Roundup bean? No. And would Roundup kill a non-GMO bean? Yes. So Roundup would kill 2 trait packages and not kill 4. What do we see here? We see 4 traits that are handling it fine, 2 that are dead. Hence, Roundup must be sprayed here, and that helps us think about, if we know that this is Roundup, we know that that plot there must not be a Roundup bean, and the back plot must not be a Roundup bean. So we think about our non-GMO and our Liberty beans, we know that one of those traits is non-GMO and one of those traits is Liberty. We might not know which one is which yet. Let's go to the next plot. So here you're picking up in the background our different signs again, our A, B, C, D, E, F. Those are the traits that we've planted. And then we continue to see our spray passes. Now I'm going to have you look at actually spray pass 4 and spray pass 5 at the same time, because these symptoms look fairly similar, don't they? First of all, what do we see? We see in the foreground 1 plot that's not affected by either of these. That's the one that's closest to the camera. And then as we get to the background, we see every plot hit. What do we see it hit with? What's the symptomology? Well, we see discoloration of these leaves. What's a healthy leaf look like? Here's a healthy green leaf, and now we're seeing stunted plants, and we're seeing kind of a yellow or bleached whitened leaf. That's going to be coming from the HPPD chemistry. And remember I said earlier on the sheet that we showed that we sprayed 2 different HPPD chemistries. We sprayed a light 27 and we sprayed Callisto Post. And what we're seeing here is what happens from that post application on non-traded beans. They're stunted, they're bleached, they're significantly hurt. We see that obviously plot A here in the foreground, these are not touched, so we can say confidently these must be the Liberty Link GT27 beans, because that's the only bean traded for that herbicide application. All right, so let's move on now and look at these these last few plots. Here we're standing in spray pass 6. Spray pass 6 in the foreground, we've got one plot hit. I'm standing in trait package B that's not hurt. And then as I get into C, D, E, and F, I see that spray pass 6 hit every plot except one plot. If I look more closely at the symptomology, what do I see? I see that epinasty. I might see some leaf curling or puckering going on. So I could ask myself, what herbicide is going to hit every plot except one? And that's going to leave me with either the Enlist 1 herbicide or the dicamba herbicide. For simplicity's sakes, we'll just let you know that plot B here, this is the Enlist 1 bean. And what was sprayed here is Enlist 1 herbicide, leaving only my E3 beans, killing everything else. As we shift here, and we look at spray pass number 7, what do we see for symptomology? The first plots in the foreground are fine. We get to plot number C, and this is what the beans look like. Burnt necrotic tissue. So that's one observation, burnt necrotic tissue. How many plots got hit? 3 plots. We've got plots here, A and B, that are fine. We hit plot C. We did not hit plot D, but then we hit E and F. What's the symptomology? And we did this exercise earlier, this logical process of elimination. This is Liberty herbicide. Liberty herbicide burning that tissue, showing necrosis, and then also hitting 3 of the plots, leaving 3 plots untouched, leaving 3 plots hit. We look at our last herbicide application here on this trait system, and what do we see? In spray pass 8, we see only 1 plot not hit. We see the beans are hit pretty significantly. We see the epinasty, that curling over in the soybeans. You can see it here in this lamb's quarter plant. And then we see 1 plot not touched, and that is the dicamba bean. So here we have extend sprayed, post, and we didn't touch our dicamba beans. Everything else isn't traded for it, and so it died. And so that's one of the exercises we did with the Cooperative Elevator staff, just to sharpen our minds and how do we do field diagnostics and processes of elimination and logical reasoning, and also reviewing trait systems in beans, and then also reviewing herbicide symptomology, so we can understand and review a little bit what different herbicides look like when you have a contamination issue or a drift issue on a non-target species. So hopefully you found that interesting and a little bit helpful as we walk through it. And thanks for your engagement, and hope you have a great day.